It's back here?
Huh?
So the curtain back?
Yeah, you can see that it's behind the curtain. Behind, you see that?
Yeah.
Shlomo is running in. That's it. Yes.
Rabbi,
Yes.
I heard she passed away.
Oh, more times. She's already on the way.
We just got the call like 10 minutes ago.
Did Bill on the plane already?
No,
She didn't go last
she
night.
didn't go last night. I think
Fine.
she's fine.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, gewalt. No, you should only have good news, Amen.
Amen.
Freilach. Freilach sollen sein. Di-da-da-da-da-da. Da 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 da, di da 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 da. Di da 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 da, da 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 da. All right, now we can go Shleimus here. Good. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Brachas Daf Lametes. I would like to begin with an intro and to make at least to share information. Let's start again. Nochamol. Are we working without Lord? With the help of Hashem, we are learning Brachas Daf Lametes. Before we begin, just sharing the following. It says in the Hayom Yom of Yud Beis Sivan that when we make the bracha Shahakol Nihiyah B'dvarei, we should read it with our comments and not with the segel. This is really sourced halachically in the Magen Avraham. Now, what's very interesting, and this is something that is either a correction or I have to have further clarification, is that the Magen Avraham, that is the source of saying Nihiyah Metakomets, links it to the sugya we learned yesterday. Moitzi, ha-moitzi, that by bread we have to make a lashon. We have to use an expression of the past, that Hashem in the past brought the grains out of the ground, as we explained, because the bread is actually made with human intervention. So we want to say that this bread that I have in my hand, I have to thank Hashem for giving me the raw material. The raw material came before the bread. So the Magen Avraham says that nihiyah is Lashon Avar, because by brachas we have to use Lashon Avar. Now, I remember clearly, this is from my Girsa the Yankis, that Nihiyah, like I've been sharing a few times, is Dafka Lashon Hoive, because of Shittas Habal Shem Tev, that his Savos is Timidius. So I have to figure out how that is reconciled. What for surely we said correctly is that our minig chabad, as based in the Magen Avraham, as many other Yidden, we say Nihiyah, but whether Nihiyah is Lashon Hoive, or whether Nihiyah is Lashon Avar, whether we can reconcile that, which if I remember learning this in Yeshiva, we have to speak about in the present, because God does create in the present, that's for sure. Whether that fits with the Lashonis, that's something that to be continued. Another important concept, going back just to yesterday, when the last thing we learned yesterday was that Rabbi Yochanan, right, he had that Kezayis Moliach. And how did he make a brach if it didn't have the shiur? So we spoke out, right, the Shita of Halacha, Shitas Tosfot clearly in the Flametesa Medalef, that the Gemara was wondering how did he make a Barach Achrayna because there was no shiur. But the Gemara was never wondering about the bracha rishayna, because the bracha rishayna we make no matter how little you will be consuming. So is tosfot. The Rabbeinu Yoina says that if a person doesn't have the shiur, then even the bracha rishayna should be modified. And what should be the bracha rishayna? The Rabbeinu Yoina says shahakoil. Mikan, many understand that the bracha of shahakoil is different than all the other birchas hanehen. If all birchas hanehen needs a minimum shiur to make a bracha, and if you have less than a shiur, then you make a shahakol, then perhaps, think about this concept. Shahakol is more a bracha of shevach and hoidah than birchas hanehen. Because then that means even if you're not having hana'ah, according to the Rabbeinu Yoina, because you're not having the shiur, but you have to praise God because the fact that we exist, that the food exists, existence is a bracha from Hashem, from our perspective. Okay, from God's perspective, is nothing exists. But to what we perceive as existence, that's Hashem is making it happen. And this will also be linked. Think about these concepts. On Daf Lamed Hamad Beis, we spoke out Machlokes Rashi and Rambam. If a person, remember the olive oil, if you just eat olive oil. So Rashi says, then the halacha would be you don't make any bracha because it's just damaging you. We spoke out that Rambam says you make a shahakol. Maybe it's connected because if shahakol is a birchas hanehenin, if you don't have hana, you don't make a bracha. If shahakol is more, it's not about me having hana, it's the fact that this exists because Hashem is creating it, then maybe even though I don't have hana, but the fact that it exists, I mean, I'm consuming it, it's not for my benefit, then I have to make a bracha of shahakol. So just have in mind that shahakal might be like a little, according to the Rabbeinu Yoina, according to the way many explain the Rabbeinu Yoina, it's an interesting category of brachas. Okay, now we're going to continue on. We're going to be learning about back to the sugya of cooked vegetables. Remember yesterday we had a machlokes, whether you make a shahakal, whether you make a hadama. We're going to learn today a lot about the seder habrachas, which is a kol kampa. You have two things in front of you. How are you to determine which one should be blessed on before the other? Which one should you consume first? Example will be if you have a whole loaf of bread and you have a broken piece of bread. The broken piece of bread you think is a better piece of bread. It's made from a better grain. We'll speak about the grains a little bit in the other shiurim, but it's more appealing to you. On what do you make the bracha? Do you make it on the whole one? Or do you make it on the one that for you is more chavav? You make it on the broken one? We're going to also go into a little more details about how are we to make a bracha Shabbos on bread, the whole concept of lechem Mishnah. And b'chlal, are we supposed to cut the bread before we eat it? Or are we supposed to cut the bread after we eat it? Cutting the bread before we eat it is advantageous because you make less of a hefsek after the bracha and the eating. Because if you already have in your hand the little piece that you want to eat, put in your mouth, you make the bracha and then you're good to go. If you make it on a whole loaf, so maybe there's more chashivus when you make the bracha, but then you have to spend time breaking the bread, cutting the bread. And b'chlal, when it comes to dini of a hefsek, if we'll get there today, it's already on top of daf mem. If a person makes a bracha, and between the bracha and eating the first swallow of bread, they make an interruption, they have to make the bracha again. But there's an exception. If the interruption is l'tzoyrech bracha, if it's for the need of the bracha, then you don't have to make a bracha again. And the question would be, what's considered tzoyrech bracha? And we'll have various opinions. With that, let us start on Daf Lamed Tes Amud Aleph. We left off at the end of the 6th line of the top of the Amud. Again, Rabbi Yochanan, who ate a zayis meliach, and he made a bracha. The question is, according to tosfot, for bracha rishayna, you of course make a bracha, no matter how little you consume. But for bracha achrayna, you have to have the shiur. It didn't have the shiur. V'haraya, because the shiur is a kazayis, but when he ate it, he took the pit out, so it didn't have the volume of a kazayis. So the Gemara answered, no, that the shiur that demands a bracha achrayna is a kazayis beininus. The kazayis that he ate was a big kazayis. Therefore, even though he took out the pit, now it still had the volume of a medium-sized kazayis. That's where we left off, and we called that kazayis zeu agure. The way we touched that the kazayis beininus, for which you have to make a bracha achrayna, is called a aguri kazayis. V'amar Rababo, that really lo agure shemai ela avrute shemai or samruse shemai. But why did Chazal call this medium size aleph a agure? Agure means gathered, sheshamnoi agur b'toichoi, because the oil in this type of olive is not the way oil is in all other types of olives, that it is absorbed in the meat. And therefore, when you take the olive out, you have to mamish kasis lamar. But aguri is an olive that the oil is in it, just gathered. Very much the way the juice in the grapes are, so to say, just gathered. A lesser amount of ksisa is needed to get it out. And that's just, so they called it the gathered olive, because really the chashivus of the olive is the oil. The oil is already gathered in there. And that is the kazayas that we use as the model of shiurim. And if a person consumes food in that amount of volume, then they're mechuyev to make a bracha achreina. And according to the Rabbeinu Yaina, only when you have food in that volume food, then you have to make the proper bracha rishona, hadama, ha'etz, and if less, according to the Rabbeinu Yaina, you would make a shahako. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu malachenu shahako nihiyah b'dvarim. Okay, Neima Ketanoi. Back to the machlokes of shalokas. Yeah, if you have vegetables, you cook the vegetables. What bracha do you make? So we had all different types of nuances yesterday. Maybe vegetables that can only be eaten cooked, you make hadama. Maybe vegetables the opposite, that when you cook them, you change them to the worse. Then you make a shahak oil. But generally, we had a machlokes. Whether we limit it, whether we clarify that it's not a machlokes, whether you make a hadama or a shahako for cooked vegetables, perhaps it's a machlokes tanoim. Tahanu trei talmidim. You know what's unique about the story? Normally, when you have a machlokes tanoim, we're very careful to quote the names of who said what. We'll see over here, these two tanoim don't have names. It's going to be a very interesting the way we identify these tanoim. There were two students. The Hava Yosef made the bar kapara. They were sitting in front of bar kapara, right? Hana. And Heviu Lefanov, they brought in front of bar kapara. Others have the version that they brought in front of these two talmidim. Heviu Lefneihem. Be that as it is, same story. They brought in front of their a keruv, a cabbage. What bracha do you make for cabbage? Huh? Okay, you would think you make a hadama. But don't forget that we learned yesterday that a cabbage cannot be eaten properly if it's not cooked. And there are opinions that say that when you cook vegetables, you make a shahako. Oh. And they brought a dur maskin. Dur maskin is a certain type of vegetable. Let's go with Rashi brings a few opinions. A certain type of spinach. Again, theoretically, if you don't cook it, you make hadama. It was cooked. And upargiois. Pargiois is a partridge piece of meat. Partridge is a bird, a kosher bird. What bracha do you make for bird? What bracha do you make for meat? Shahak oil. Now, clearly, one of the two Talmidim was of the opinion that all of them were a food for which you got to make a shahak oil. So the brachas were the same. And when you have different items that share the same bracha, you need not make a bracha on each and every item. You make a bracha shahako on one, and being that you know you'll be consuming all of the rest, you're good for all the other foods. But now the question will be, which one should you make the bracha over? How are you to determine? And there's a concept that we'll be introducing now called chaviv. Chaviv means, for you want one more than the others. For you, it's more chaviv. If it's more chaviv for you, since they share the same bracha anyway, so make the bracha over the one that's more chaviv on you. That's one way of deciding what to do. Now, Nasan bar kapara reshus la'echad. Bar kapara told one of the talmidim, you make the bracha for everyone else, like we mentioned, that it was common and that one person made the bracha. Even the bracha rishayna, everyone else listened. Where do we do this today? Many people go back to Shabbos, hamoitzi. One person makes the hamoitzi, and everyone eats. Even by Kiddush, one person makes the Kiddush, including the Birchas Anahen and the Boire Pri Agafen. Everyone else drinks. So Nasan bar kapara reshus la'echad. And here again, similar to the story we had before of Rabbi Akiva, what was Bar Kapara expecting? That the one that was given the kavod should ask the Rebbe, Bar Kapara, okay, which one should I make the bracha over? Even if you think you know what to do, you have someone that's greater. You have your teacher there. So kafatz ubeirach al hapargiyos, the one who was given the honor, kafatz literally means he jumped. It means he didn't wait, he didn't consult. He picked up the bird, he picked up this partridge, and he made a bracha shahak. And what did the other Talmud do? Ligleg olav chaveri. The other one mocked him. He did something to like he doesn't know what he's doing. And Bar Kapara got very upset at both of them. Now, guys, for sure, there's a lot more to the story that's written in the Gemara. But the Gemara is quoting that which is important for our sugya. Okay, have that in mind. It wasn't just this that happened, because look at what happened. Cause Bar Kapara. For a tzaddik to get angry, much more happened. He got upset. And he said, he got angry at both, but he got angry at each one separately. So first he said, I'm not upset, I'm not angry. Let's touch the pshut. I'm not angry at the one that did the bracha. I'm upset at the one that laughed. No, this is all based on the premise that the brachas are the same. It's all shahakal. But that's why he understood why he didn't make hadama should always come before shahakal. It's as a rule, because any specific bracha is more important than the general bracha. Shahakal is a very generic bracha, but that was not the issue. There's all shahakals, but why punkt the bird? Because he's someone that for him this bird was so chashiv. Makes sense why he would make the bracha shahakal on the bird. But why did you laugh at him? It made sense what he did. But he didn't stop there. So first he gave it to the guy that laughed, to the guy who mocked. Then he turned and he said the following. I'm not upset at the one who mocked. I'm upset at the one who made the bracha. And this is how Bar Kapar explained why he was us. If you didn't ask me, what I think you should do is because you don't consider me wiser than you, and that's something that we can debate, maybe yeah, maybe not, but zikna enkan, am I not older than you? Right? You can't debate about that. Okay, even if you don't, he was upset at the start, you don't consider me a bigger chacham, I'm a bigger elder. Now, the Gemara writes, Tana, we learned in another place, that b'shneim lo hitziu shnasan, that neither of them lived the entire year after the story. In other words, there was a lot more to the story. When he was angry, there was what we call akpeda, and this kapeda had a detrimental effect on them. But what's negeya now is, so now the way the Gemara hears the story, why taka ligleg? So instead of having a machlekes between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, there's a machlekes tanoim between the mevarech and the melagleg. And now we're trying to understand, what is their machlekes? My love or hakom ifligi? What is their argument? The mevarech savar that shalakois, cooked vegetables, and upargiyos, and this bird, yeah, omri shakol ibidvari. And since they have the same, they are in the same category. So the question is only of kedima, which one comes before the other. So now we use this concept of chaviv, hilkach, chaviv, olive, gavaldik, umelagleg savar. So why did he laugh? He knew that, but he did. But he thought there's a concept of chaviv because he held that even though you cook vegetables, so what? You still make a bayre priyadama. And pargiyois, no matter how much you love it, has a bracha shahakol nebedvari. And hilkach, he felt, and this is, no one debates this, that if you have a shahakol and a hadama now, which bracha should you make first? Ala peira, and the one that has a specific bracha. So is this not a machlekes tanoim between the mavarech and the malagleg? And obviously, if this just would have been a machlekes tanoim, then there wouldn't have been vishnei and lo yitziu shenasim. Okay. So says the Gemara, loy, not necessarily so. The kula alma, I can argue, shalakas upargio is shakal nebedvari. V'hacheb ha'isfarakom ifligi. Let's go back. Not so pashut. You're telling me that when everything has the same bracha type, the only thing to determine which one comes before the other is which one do you consider more important, because which one do you want more? Not necessarily. That in itself can be a machlekes. Taka mar sovar the mevarech taka held chaviv. Adif, which is why he made a bracha on the partridge, on the bird, on the chicken, whatever that was. Marsava, no, kruv adif. Why? Because even if you like the partridge more, which one is more zoyen? Which one provides more sustenance? What a gemara. Mikan, you see that vegetables give you more sustenance than partridge. Lavdafket means on all meats. But the vegetarians will love this gemara. Clearly, vegetables gives you more sustenance than protein. First of all, is there protein in vegetables? Of course there is. Ask any person who eats a lot of vegetables. So and therefore, let's go with that. If something is more mizaying, if something gives more sustenance, then for that you got to make the bracha first. In other words, when we are thanking God, are we thanking God because of the nutritional value or because of the hana'ah that I have? That's chaviv versus zoyin. And that's the machlokes. And maybe everyone holds that the moment you cook vegetables, you make a shahakol. If there's a big machlokes, some people would say that people who don't like vegetables, there's so many arguments with vegetables, the best thing is don't eat vegetables, I'm a chay. And that's what we tell our kids, our mothers when we're children. Good. Omar Abzeda. When I was by the shiur of Rav Huna, Omar Loni told us, Hani gargelide the lifter, turnip heads. And there were two ways of preparing it. There was cutting it into big shtikalach, and then there is dicing them. Question is, when you dice up a vegetable, you're changing it. And we are learning this theme that when you change something for the worse, then maybe the bracha changes from the specific to the generic shahakol. So how do we view dicing of vegetables? So he says like this, that piraminhu prima rabba, if you only cut it into big pieces, then the bracha doesn't change. But this is what he heard by Rav Huna and Dishi Rav Huna. But if prima zuta, but if you dice it, shahakol neibadvarim. Because that was what they held. That's already, it's such a shinui to the worse. It's like it's not the same thing anymore. So you make a shahakol. However, Rav Yehuda, he said no, they disagreed in that yeshiva. Amar lan idi but the reason why people dice vegetables into smaller pieces is to make the taste sweeter. So the kavanah for which you dice it, if it's not to change it, it's to bring out the taste or to bring in a bigger sweetness, to make the taste change for the better, then for sure the bracha doesn't change. Omar Avashi, Kevin Rav Kahana, Omar Lon, that tafshila, the silka, a cooked beet dish, right? And they used to add to it flour. Now, guys, we keep on learning Rav and Shmuel, which is made as a statement. And we learned already the tosfot there, that if you have any of the 5 grains in a dish, even if it's in the minority, we generally will not view it as the tafel. This becomes the ikar, and you make a mezainis. And what we learned in the tosfot, there's one exception, that even when you add any of the 5 grains, flours of the 5 grains, if it's only there, not for the quality of the food, but only as a binder, ladabek, as a binder, it remains a tafel. That's where the tosfot got it from. That's the gemara over here. So they used to add flour. So the question is, why did they add the flour? If they did not add a lot of flour, and we'll see in a moment. So why did they add it? Not for the taste, only that the food should be more gooey together, more stuck together. It was a binder. Then by the priyadama, we discount the fact that there's flour in it, but but when they would add flour in a turnip dish, they would add more flour. Obviously, they added that flour not only as a binder, but for the goodness, for the taste. You can even say for the taste of the food. So here, the din is by the minimum zaynis, like Rav and Shmuel taught us. However, then they said, all these types of cooked dishes of vegetables, that the flour was only added as binders. Because even though the taka added more kemach, lidabuke ba'alma of the law. And again, whenever it's added, lidabuke, it's not about how much, then you don't make a bracha on it. Cheesecake, that's the question. So cheesecake, many cheesecakes have just a little bit of flour in the bottom. Do you make a mezainis? Do you make a shahako? That's the question. For what purpose did they add that base? If it's only as a binder, so it's in the bottom. It shouldn't fall apart. Then you make a shahako, because then. But if it's added also for the tam, then you make a mezainis.
But it's like more chumra, like to take a piece first of that and just eat that.
Just what Shlomo says, B'chal by brachas, whenever a person has a kasha, it says a Yiras Shamayim, should take two separate foods, not here. Take a mazoinus, make a mazoinus. Take a shahakol, make a shahakol. And then have the cheesecake. Or just don't eat. Weiter. Amar Abchizda. Tav sheshol tiradin. Cooked beets. Cooked beets. Aaron, yafal alev. Guys, vegetable gemara is good for your heart. The toiv le'nayim, it's good for your eyes. And the kol shchein lebnei ma'ayin. And avad, it's good for your intestines. The Gemara says twice that Ruban shel tzadikim misosen b'choyle ma'ayin. That's in the Ashkafta the Rebbe. We have this in Shabbos. And there's a reason for that. Most tzaddikim pass away from intestinal illnesses. So we have to heal our stomachs. You should have cooked beets. If a person has a lot of cooked beets, I remember this from yeshiva. Someone had a lot of cooked beets and they went to the bathroom. I'm just sharing it because someone went through a lot of agmas nefesh and when they went, the urine, it looked like it was blood. And they thought who knows what. And they ran all these tests. Pashut, it was the borscht. No, I'm saying this, yeah. I witnessed someone go through a lot of scare and this. Have a lot of beets. Amar Abaye. When beets is healthy? Only the Yosef Abeitfei. Only if it sat a long time on the fire. And va'avid, and because of that, it's not only that it was really cooked, it became so liquidy. Liquid, when it boils, it begins to bubble. The way the Gemara describes bubbling is saying tuch tuch. That's the sound of bubbling. Depends what language your vegetables talk when they bubble, but that's the way the Gemara records. And I think that there's a link also to the whole sugya. The Gemara maybe is also bringing this in there to show you that certain vegetables become a lot better when cooked. Going back to this concept that this whole question, shahakal and adama, certainly has to do with, did you change it for the worse? Did you change it for the better? Now, Amar Papa, Pshitali, let's speak about the brachas on this. Now, guys, this is so gavaldik. Halt cup. We learned yesterday, at least we're learning relatively quicker, so you remember. Daf Lamed Ches, we learned Benegeya, crushed fruits. No, and we said it, we learned the Gemara with Rashi. There's a machlekes how to learn the Gemara. Like, there comes a certain point that even though we learned that if it's not completely mashed, you might make a bari priya eitz, but when it's completely mashed, it goes back to a shahakol. That was fruits. Here we're speaking about vegetables, and it is different. So says the Gemara, Maya de Silka. Maya de Silka means you have a beet soup, but it's water. That means that you don't see any of the silka. It could even be that when you cook the vegetables, you took the vegetables out. It's water. You know what bracha do you make? Not the way we learned yesterday by fruits, by kompot. Again, that some people, depending how you learn the Gemara, are of the opinion that when you cannot recognize the pears or the apples, you make a shahakol. Here, you make kesilka. You make the bracha of beets. You make a hadama on beet soup. Umaya delifta. It's not only by beets. You have a turnip soup. It's water. Kilifta means the bracha hadama. Maya de kolishlaki. Water of any vegetable is kikolishlaki. So all of the Rishonim ask, how do you reconcile this with what we learned on Daf Lamed Ches? Why is vegetables different than fruits? So just a quote two of the Rishonim. The Rashba writes, because the normal way of eating these vegetables is by cooking them. The Rosh writes, it has to do with the taste of the vegetable soup. The Rosh says that the tam of vegetable soup tastes mamish like the vegetables, versus when you crush, like drink apple juice. Apple juice doesn't taste like an apple. It's similar, but it's not the same. It's not the taste of the tam of the juice is not like the tam of the peri. And many other Rishonim give other suggestions which are very negei halacha l'maisa. Why do we differentiate between vegetables and fruits? Right. But Rav Papa, my question is, Maya the shifta, dill. Interesting. How do you view dill? Today we add. Dill is already almost like a spice. Now, dill is a vegetable. If you put dill in a soup, now what bracha do you make? What's the question? Question is, now, dill is so strong, right? Your mamash taste it. A little bit of dill. For me, you taste the tam of dill. So it tastes like the dill. Let's go with the Rosh. The taste is there. But why did you put it in will determine, and that's why, since he doesn't know, he has a question. Do we say that lematuke tama avdei, that you put it in there to give a better taste? Matuki literally means sweet. It means to better the tam. And if that's the case, then you would make a vayda priyadam. Or maybe you put in deal not to add a good taste, but just in case there's a bad odor, like the people that never take a shower and then they put on deodorant or Rahman Islam, which says like the way they get rid of a bad smell, they think they add so much good smell. Ooh, now it's better than the bad smell. So if you're putting something to neutralize a bad odor, even if it's effective by adding a new taste, but if your kavanah is to neutralize, then you make a shahakal. Then it won't change the bracha of the water before. But if you're adding it to add taste, then by vegetables you would make adama according to our sugya. So he doesn't know why people add a dill. So Tashma.
You add dill to a soup that has vegetables.
So like this, very good. So Rabbi Chaim is saying this: if the soup is anyways hadama, then there's no kasha. Was if I have a beet soup, so just because I add a dill, why would it be different? But if I have his water, Narvas, I'm using a pot in the olden days, it was grease in it. They might push it sometimes, the pots don't smell good, the water doesn't smell good. Without the dill, I would make a shahakal. It has to be the case. Now I add a dill. Now the question is, okay, now that you add a dill and there's a tam of dill, so do you say tam of dill, hadama? Or if I only put it in there to take away yesterday's chicken soup smell, how did I take it away? By making a chicken soup smell plus dill. I don't know, somehow it neutralizes the smell. Good, Tasha. Why isn't it lematuke? Can I jump the ingen on Shabbos? Can we put on deodorant? I'm not speaking about salad into not salad. That we're never allowed to break down a salad. But if we're putting on something to take away bad smell, there's a difference in halacha. That's okay. Versus to add smell, that's not okay. So be careful. We'll get to Masechta Shabbos next Masechta. You have an halacha throughout, even if it's the same smell. But what's your kavanah? Is it to take away something negative? Taking away something negative is nothing. That's why Chassidim always emphasize that Asay Toiv is greater than Surmira. Because Surmira, I didn't do bad, but what did I do? I did nothing. The whole life, avoid the Surmira, what did I accomplish? Nothing. Now, the emesis, the premiers, I did a skafia, but Asay Toiv, I did good. Is it Asay Toiv? You make a bracha. If it's Surmira, then you don't make a bracha. Tashema. So it says in the Mishnah, Hasheves. Now, another thing, Truma is something that has kedusha and it can only be eaten by a kohen. What happens if I had sheves truma? Tak only midrabanan. We spoke about that the lekula alma fine, but midrabanan it's truma, and I used it in the soup. You know, when you use sheves, the tam of the sheves goes into the soup, and what remains in the stalks, says the Mishnah, is nothing. Hasheves misha nasna tam b'kedeira ein ba mishum truma. The stalks are they're not sheves. And all of the restrictions on Truma don't exist. Now the words of the Mishnah is Hasheves Mishenos Natam. So in other words, if the whole purpose of putting Sheves in is only to neutralize odor, then Rabbeinu HaKadosh would not have used that words. And that's a cloud that we always have to remember. That in Torah, if you want to know why people do something, the solution is not to ask a person, why did you do it? Look in the Torah. Once Rabbeinu HaKadosh worded it this way, as a rule, that's the cloud. Sheves is to add taste. And the Mishnah is speaking about the context of, first of all, it doesn't have Kedushas Truma. And even if it's not Truma, all of the dinim of Eicholin, to become Tamei, to convey Tuma. So there's unique dinim that are only shaykh if something is halachically called an Oichel. Once Sheves was used in a soup, what the remnants of those stalks are not called food. Gavaldik. So what do we see? And from the words of Mishinas Natam, Shma Mino lematuke tama avdila, Shma Mino. Beautiful. Nu, weiter, freilach, Omer Abchia Barashi, pas, senuma baka'ara. We will learn the Gemara, my friends, the way Tosfot learns. Tosfot teaches croutons, pas senuma means you have hard bread in a pot, meaning, says Tosfot, that you put in your dip, in your food, little pieces of bread. And that is what you want to eat. And Tosfos adds, and what happened? That you had a proper, wholesome loaf of bread in front of you that you don't want to eat. And the question here, which is going to be according to Tosfos, not similar. It means Daf Lamed Testament Beis will continue with this topic. There's a concept of shalom versus perusa. Anything wholesome is more chashuv. So maybe you should make the bracha over the shalem. On the other hand, you want the little pieces. You don't want to have the soft bread. You want to have these hard pieces of bread that you put into your soup. So you're going to make hamoitza. The question is over what? That's the way Tosfos learns the question. So this is what they said. Again, Abchia Barashi. Pas tsunuma baka'ara. You have the hard, broken pieces in a dish. And you have next to you, Tosfos says, a challah shalema. Pas shalema. Mevarchin aleha. Since you want to eat the little pieces, make the bracha over it. Tosfos 3 lines from the bottom. V'yashlemet. Going to ika shlema lefanav. People learn the hard gemara. To know the mitzias. What's the case? Ubatza min hatzenuma. So the question is, again, we learned the chaviv. Chaviv, you want to have the little pieces. So there's chaviv. But on the other hand, you can argue that the shlem is more chashiv. Says he, that no, says Reb Chia Barashi. However, please Reb Chia. So don't confuse Reb Chia Barashi and Reb Chia. To Amar Reb Chia, no. You have to make the bracha on the shlema. Then he gives another detail. When you make a bracha over the shlema, being that we do not want to be mafsik between the bracha and the eating, so he says that begin making the bracha when the loaf is whole. But as you are making the bracha, begin to tear it. So when you finish the min haaretz, now it's already broken. So says Reb Chia. You have to finish the bracha with the bread. What does it mean? It means you have to finish breaking it. You break it simultaneously with the bracha. But what do we see? Don't begin the bracha only break it after the bracha. So then it's advantageous to make the bracha on the shleim. Because at least when you made the whole bracha, it's shalom. But if you, Reb Chia, are also saying that by the time you finish the bracha, it's broken. So it's broken anyway. What did you benefit? Why don't you accept Reb Chia Barashi? Don't make the bracha on the little broken piece of bread. Why not? You want to eat it? Because mishum dechichalia bracha aprusa kokalia. Because when you finish the bracha, it's broken. Oy bazoi ala pas nami. Even if you are going to take the whole loaf, if you accept the concept of breaking it while you're making the bracha, so when you finish the bracha, anyways, it's broken. Is tiko gamra aprusa gamara? Anyways, it's going to be broken. Now, what's the other opinion? In other words, do we view the beginning of the bracha? Do we view the end of the bracha? Obviously. He challenged because he held that the ikir is the ending of the bracha. And if you allow to break the bread during the bracha, so you're back to square one. And if you're back to square one, have a kasha. Because if you don't want to have that type of bread, you want to have the little hard in the dish, then for sure, if it's equal, same bracha, same chashivus, then chavivus, everyone agrees to the concept that chavivus does weigh in. Ella, so there has a third opinion. Rabbi says, no, you don't make it on the little croutons. You make it on the loaf, but don't begin to break it during the bracha, mevarech, and only v'acharkach boitzeya. How great is that? Oh, we can get to Shabbos in a moment. Very good. Now, what Mapoil Mamish Nardoins do like Reb Chia, that they used to break the bread simultaneously while they made the bracha. However, Rabbanan of the Kirava, that they first finish the bracha and then they break the bread. And Amar Avina, Amar Li'aim, my mother told me, he found out, it's important. Right? Toira Simecha, Avuch, your father, what's that, your father? Her husband. But she told him, your father does like Reb Chia. Because the advantage of minimizing the time hefsek trumps the concept of finishing the bracha while it's still shalema. But the rabbanan of the kirava. See that? Well, she didn't want to say that something negative about her husband. Your father, he wanted Ravina, the mother of Ravina wanted him to know what the father does, what your father does, and the Rabbanan do like Rava. And the Gemara says, "V'hilchase kirave the Amar mevanach v'achakach boitzeya." Here we have such an important place. It's a top place. He writes many important points, some of which we are familiar with today, and therefore he writes a takawi paskin like Rava. Don't break the bread when you finish making the bracha. the bread won't be broken. But since we have in the Gemara the shita of minimizing the time hefsek, so at least begin before the bracha. What should begin? That's not, why we do it. We make a little indentation in the bread. We don't allow any of the bread to go out. So halachically, we didn't break the shleimus of the bread. But this is at least a way of demonstrating that I'm machshiv the importance of not making a hefsek, even in time. So I began cutting the bread as much as I could without taking away from the shleimus before you begin the bracha. Now, it says in many poskim, sometimes we make, you know what we do? Make a little indentation. It doesn't really save you that much time. And if you're going to, then when you're going to cut the bread, you're going to have to go back to that crack. You're going to waste time. So they write, it's not pshat that taka you saved up a millisecond. You're showing the importance of not making a hefsek bisman. Okay. Weiter. Let's go weiter, then we'll speak about Zoya, which is very important. The poskim say you dafka don't have to go back to that spot because that's gonna make you waste more time. It's about the demonstration. Now there's a machlokes. So when you make that indentation, you're showing that you don't want to pater zan. You want to be able to already be at least a step ahead, a moment ahead. In concept, itmar we learned. Hiviu lefneim psisim ushleimin. See, according to Tosfot, this itmar is connected to the sugi we began on Amud Aleph. That's the question. You have pieces of bread. That's called psisin. We learned this by Menachas a few days ago. Pasais oisoi, and then you have shleimin. You have a whole loaf. So Amar Afuna, the rule is mivarech ala psisin, make the bracha on the broken pieces, and upaiter as shleimin. In other words, b'negeya brachos. Now, why would you make a dafka psisin? So many learn pshat. You will make an psisin because you won't have to waste time breaking it. Tosfos here says that the nuance difference, this is a new sugya, the psisin, even the broken piece, is larger, says Tosfos here, than the whole small little chalala. So now there's another introduction, another concept. And that concept is when it comes to chashivus, not hefsek. Size, there is a place in halacha where size is considered more chashuv. It's a bigger piece. So the broken piece is bigger than the whole little loaf. That is, according to Tosfos, the question now in the Gemara. So Rafuna says that largeness trumps wholesomeness. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, shleima is mitzvah min avu. Wholesomeness is more important. Avol, however, that we have this machlokes, if it's only between these two concepts, shleimus, largeness. But what happens if the grains from which the bread was made, one is different than the other? And this is now the klal that we should learn. Since when the Torah, who records the types of grains, which one does the Torah put first? In the Shivas Haminim, eretz chita u'sa'ira. So chitim, wheat, is considered more chashuv than barley. And guys, we speak about the 5 grains, so we're going to learn this somewhere soon, that the 5 grains are really 2 groups, like Avis and Toldos. Chita is the parent of spelt, and barley is the parent of rye and oats, of rye and oats. So chita comes before soida, and therefore, avol prusa shal chitin, if they're broken, even though Rabbi Yochanan holds shleimus, is more important. But if the broken piece is made out of a greater quality flour, which is wheat, and the shleima, the wholesome one, shleima is made out of siyorim, divrei hakoil, bevarech ala prusa shal chitin, and upaiter es ha-shleima shal siyorim. So whole wheat. So I would just say like this, just to know, I'm saying now, I'll be melitza. Chita is called Michael Adam. We see this from Chazal. So Oirim is called Michael Behema. Could be that when people become such behemoths, so for them, so Oirim is better. I don't know how to explain it. And Bechlal, whole grain in the Gemara and Chazal, the more refined the flour, the better it is for the person. Now, what do the big chachamim of the world say? There is chacham in the world. Sometimes they're wrong, sometimes they're right. They say that whole grains is better. It can also be. In other words, the klipa, what's whole grain? You don't take away the klipa. So I think that what sustains me, if I eat something that's like me, if there's a shidduch between me and the food and myself. So if a Yid, during the olden days, people were not connected to klipa. This is all just a concept. So therefore, the less klipa in the food, the better it was for them. But if, sadly, people are klipid, then it's a better shidduch. It fits other yeah and a big other nisht. Accepted. Okay, weiter. Kitanoi. What's kitanoi? This question, says Rashi, this question that a prusa shall chitin and a shleima shall so'idin, you're telling me that the divrei hakoil, no, it's a machlekes, which is toiramin batzel. The Gemara is so beautiful to teach us how to link one topic and the other. I got to separate truma. And let's go vegetables. Truma vegetables is midrabanan. Who cares? It's midrabanan. It's ideal for me, that which I separate for truma should be from the better. I'm not speaking about completely better, but the example here will be, you have onions, you want to give it to Omri, and now what you have in your pile, you have whole onions and you have cut onions. You have in front of you cut pieces of onions. That's all the way Tosfot learns, that the cut piece is bigger than the whole ones. Which one should you separate for truma? So there's a machlekes tanoim. Toiramin batzel katal shalim, right? That avoloi chatzi batzel gadol. That shleimus is better even though it's smaller than the piece of onion, even though it is larger. Rashi writes that clearly. Now, Rabbi Yehuda says, no, ki ela chatzi batzel gadol. Give, it's the sum total of what you're giving to the kohen is the same. But I have to pick from the pile, which one will I separate? Rabbi Nechemiah says that largeness trumps wholesomeness. So l'chayda, my love, b'hakomifliya. The marsavar, the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, chashiv adav. It's amazing. Chashiv means largeness. Umarsavar, the Tana Kama holds that shalom adav. Says the Gemara, no. Heicha the ikar kohen. If there's a kohen right here, kul amalei pliga. For sure, size is more chashiv adav. And chashiv adif would mean, again, what we're saying. What's the chashiv over here? Chashiv would be in the wheat and the barley, that the wheat is more chashiv, even though it's not wholesome. And you would give to the kohen the piece of onion. We all know this by onions, even people like us. When you cut an onion, if the advantage, if the benefit of an onion is the sharpness of the onion, as time goes on, especially if it's cut, it loses its koyach. So you want for the kohen to get the best. Well, if there's a kohen available by an onion, it makes a big difference, because now he's going to get right away a good and size is chashiv. But the second line, ki pligi, where do we have the machlekes tanoim? The leka kohen. There's no kohen right here. That means when I separate truma, I might not be able to give it to him right away. And especially by a cut vegetable, it can spoil quicker. It loses its kohen and it spoils. Tetnan, kol makam sheish kohen, toidem min hayafa. What do you give to the kohen? Superior produce. Yes, that's a good rule. But over kol makam she'ein kohen, don't look at superior. Look at something even more important, which is miskayim. What will last longer? Because I don't even know when I'm going to find a kohen. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with that. Rabbi Yehuda says, ein toidem element hayafa. So gavaldik. What's the machlekes here? Huh? No. In other words, when it comes to the wheat and the barley, we're going on the premise that everyone holds that chashiv adif. Chashiv means chita, standing the ground. And therefore, you should give the part, you should make the bracha over the piece of chita bread and not over the wholesome, not over the whole. When by truma there's a machlekes, maybe to give whole, that's only because if you hold that you have to make sure that whatever you're separating, the kohen will get good. When it comes to truma, this is the question. Is it about me separating or is it about the kohen receiving? If the ikar is about me separating, I should separate that which is the most chashiv. Right? Min hayafa. Yafa means the larger piece. If it's about what the kohen gets, no, we want the kohen to get the freshest food. Don't separate a broken onion. Okay. We're going back to the machlokes of Rav Huna and Rabbi Yochanan. When you have in front of you a wholesome bread, not chita so'eda, stam chita. You have a whole piece and you have a broken piece, but the broken piece is larger than the whole piece. So if you want to cover both, you know what you do? Make a bracha by holding both of them. Shneim. And umanu, and this follows the opinion of Mar Berei de Ravina. The Mar Berei de Ravina, when he had this thing, he had a whole loaf and he had a broken piece. The broken piece was larger than the whole loaf. So you know what he did was maniach prusa b'toich hashlema. He would put the broken piece inside the shlema. Guys, don't jump. If you read it kipshutai, if you put it inside the shlema, what did you do to the shlema? Not so shlema anymore. So Tosfot says it means under the shlema, uboitseya, and then break the bread. Now, very important. Second to last Tosfot. He's quoting Rashi. Maniach prusa b'toich shlema boitseya. Perush Rashi. Either it means that he would take a break both, or this is going to follow this. Boitseya l'shlema bilvad. He only broke the whole piece. So what was the mile of putting the broken large piece underneath it? V'hainu al yidei sheneyem the kiven shehiniach haprusa tachas hashlema nira k'moshe b'tseya nami haprusa. It gives the appearance of. And we're gonna learn the next few lines in the Gemara based on the inami of Rashi that we just read over here. No, he didn't break both pieces. He only broke the shlema, the top one. But since he had the prusa underneath it, it looked like he was also breaking the underneath it. Okay, back inside the Gemara. Tana kamei Rav Nachman Yitzchak. Right, Rav Nachman was an Amoira. The Tana is not the Tana; it means a Tana teacher. The Tana teacher was teaching the following brayse in front of Rav Nachman by Yitzchak, that when you have a prusa and a shlema, so a brayse says, maniach ha-prusa b'toich ha-shlema, right, b'toich ha-shlema, the two options in Rashi, u'b'tseya, two options, you could break both, you even have the option only to break the top one, but it's needed like you broke also the bottom one, u'mavarech. And Rav Nachman by Yitzchak was so happy with this, Amalei, he asked the Tana teacher, Mashemecha, what's your name? Amalei Shalman. Shalman from Shlemus. Shaloim Ato. Ushlema Mishnasecha. Shesamto Shaloim Bein HaTalmidim. Gevaldik. Amar Papa. Hakol Moedim. Everyone agrees when it comes to Pesach. And we have a whole matzah and a broken matzah. Now, the way we follow the Seder is we will all have a broken matzah because of the afikoimen that we broke earlier on in the Seder. So there shemaniach prusa b'toich shalema. That there, when you make the hamoitzi lechem in the aretz, what do you hold in your hands? Right? So our minig actually is when we make the first hamoitzi, we pick up all three. Then when we make the bracha al achilas matzah, that's our minig. We drop the bottom one, but we still hold mamish the shleim on top, and then the broken one underneath it. Ubaitseya. You know, and again, according here, by the way, here it's not an option. Here that you have to do that. Why is that? Because since the Torah calls matzah lechem oini, and we'll learn in Pesachim, lechem oini doesn't only mean the bread of affliction. It also means lechem she'oinen Allah dvarim harbe, but lechem also means bread of affliction. One of the ways that we define bread of affliction, is it's the bread of the poor, the bread on ani. So there is an inyan to make a bracha over a broken piece. There is an inyan to make a bracha over a whole matzah. So here, that's the solution. Have them both in your hand. Let's go with the second option of here of Rashi. You don't even have to break from the bottom one. You don't even have to do that. But we break from the top one. It's nida, right? Those are the words that Tosfos elaborate. It's nida sheboitseya nami aprusa. I'm reading it in Tosfos because she is here, but these additional words we find in the Tosfos. Amar Rab Abba. Let's go now to Shabbos. Ubeshabbos chayiv adam liftzoya al shtei kikaris. You're chayiv when you make a bracha to break two loaves. My tama in Pashas B'Shalach Hashgacha Pratis Pashas Hashavua. Right when it says Vayibayim Hashishi Loktu Lechem Mishnah. Let's remember the context that Hashem commanded us not to take more than we needed. And the Torah right now records that those who took more of the manna than they needed, it became wormy and it melted. But when it came to Friday, we took a double portion and it didn't melt. And it didn't become wormy. Oh, 1 second. My tama lechamishniksiv. However, Amar Rav Ashi, not the way you say, he used the words, Shlema, liftsoya. Liftsoya means to break. Now again, that's why I keep on reading the Rashi and the Tosfos. The lefsoya doesn't necessarily have to mean that you actually break. It means like if you hold one on top of the other, it looks like when you break the top one that you're breaking the bottom one. So let's go further. So Amar Ravashi, Chazina Leila Rav Kahana, the Noketarta. I saw that Taka, when he made the bracha, he held on to both. But I know that Ubatza Chadi Dafke, he Dafka only broke when a Dafka. You know why Dafka? Because in the Midbar, when we had the Lechem Mishnah, we left every portion for a meal. So if Friday night, what happened Friday? Every day we took food that was good for 2 meals. So let's say whatever I took every day was good for 2. What did we do Friday? We took enough, double, which is enough for 4. So Ki'ilu, Friday morning, I had 4 loaves. Friday night, I had Ki'ilu, 3 loaves. But I only broke 1 because I only took from 1 because I needed it for tomorrow. Shabbos morning, you had 2. That's the 2. But for the last meal of Shabbos, you only had 1. And by the way, that's the sources of Machlokes and Halacha, whether you need to have Lechem Mishnah for Shabbos afternoon. Those opinions that say that for Shabbos afternoon, for Shalosh Shudas, you only have 1 loaf, is because in the Midbar, they only had the final portion left. But coming back, but they didn't consume it all Friday night. That was the whole miracle, that it did not melt. It did not become wormy. So only break 1. And by the way, we'll go to more Araminic, but this whole thing of which one goes on top of the other. Shulchan Aruch, Friday night, you put the right one under. Shabbos day, you put the right one over. This is all connected to our sugi here. Rabbizajac, have a batza kol sherusa. Anudin, the way Rashi teaches, 4 lines before the bottom, that whenever he broke his challah or his bread on Shabbos, normally you break a little piece. Fakert, you're not supposed to rip the bread with your teeth. It's not derecheretz. You're supposed to break it with your hand, and the amount that you're putting in your mouth, that's the amount, the whole sandwich. That's an American Michael Behema. You have to have a little piece and you eat it. On Shabbos, he would break he also wouldn't rip it with his teeth, but he would take a big piece of challah. We'll cover Shabbos, and we'll see back. That's called akulash. All of the bread that he needed during the meal, they ate everything with bread. So he right away had in front of him a shtickle challah. You look like a person that is overindulgent in eating. It's not nice to have in front of you. Put a little piece in front of you. When this finishes, take another little piece. Like this. No, everyone knows the way I eat. Since during the week, I never have such a big piece of food in front of me. And it doesn't even have the appearance. It looks like that I'm doing it in honor of Shabbos. Rav Ami v'Ravasi. So guys, there's something called Eiruv Chatzeres. Bikitze. Midday Raisa. I'm not allowed to carry from a Rosh Hashanah to a Rosh Hashanah or the opposite, or 4 Amos in a Rosh Hashanah. But in different types of Rosh Hashanah, I can carry from one into the other. Midrabanan, I can't carry from one type of Rosh Hashanah to another type of Rosh Hashanah. By type, I mean that if the home belongs only to me, and the yard in front of my home belongs to me and to my neighbor, if we share a joint yard, so it's not called the same type of Rosh Hashanah because this is only mine and this is mine and yours. My apartment is only mine. The common area is mine and yours. And midrabanan, you can't carry from one into the other. And the solution for that is to express by having food that all of us own everything for Shabbos. It all belongs to everyone. Which all belongs to everyone. Everyone who lives in this yard will participate in a amount of food. The food will be placed, let's say, in my apartment. Since everyone has food in my apartment, that means that everyone has the right to go and get their food. That means I am giving up some of my ownership. I'm sharing my apartment with everyone else who lives in it. Why am I doing it? Obviously not for free, because they are giving me the same rights in their apartment. So Ke'ilu, everyone has the rights to go everywhere on Shabbos. And you do that by placing food. Now, the question is, are you allowed to eat up that food on Shabbos? So we're going to learn the Gemara in a way that it comes out that the only time you need to have an Eruv Chatzeres is Bein Hashmashos, when Shabbos comes in. If you have the Eruv Chatzeres when Shabbos comes in, even if someone consumed the food on Shabbos, that's okay. That's according to one way we learn the Gemara. Now the question is, anything that you use for a mitzvah, use it for another mitzvah. Not at the same time. But if you hold that you only need to have the Eruv when Shabbos comes in, so Shabbos day, There's a mitzvah to eat on Shabbos, right? Oinik Shabbos. So says the Gemara, whenever the Eruv was left in their house, in their apartment, so they had access to it, so they would use that bread for why? They say, since the mitzvah was already done with it, the mitzvah of it, it's a chada, mitzvah. Oh, I want to say about the Zoyar. Okay, first of all, this concept we have very often. If your tzitz is ripped, many people use it for a bookmarker in a sefer. People today, till today, people burn the lulav with the chametz. There were times that people burned the lulav in the oven that made the matzah. Tashmishay kedusha needs geniza. Tashmishay mitzvah don't need geniza. But in other words, if something was used for a mitzvah, we say since it was already used for a mitzvah, let it be used for another mitzvah. The way Chassidus emphasizes that a gilgul of a neshama doesn't always have to mean that you made a mistake in the prior life. Everything is a tikkun. No. If a neshama was very successful in a prior life, so that Hashem says, Hoyel vis'avid bei mitzvah, since this neshama was so successful, I'm going to, you're a general, you send a soldier. The soldier that's very much sliach, you'll send him on another mission. Not to fix, pum fakert, is araya, that you did an awesome job the first time around. Now, when it comes to challah, I know I mentioned what it says in the Zohar. I'll mention it. I will repeat it again tomorrow, God willing. When we break bread, because we began to speak about hefsek, and daf mem on top also is about hefsek. Many people find it strange on Shabbos. You cut the bread for everyone. Normally, when you eat food, it's not nice for you to begin before everyone else. Everyone should begin it together. So people without learning would think that when you cut the bread Friday night, give everyone a piece of challah, and then eat with everyone else. But that's not the way we do it. We eat it right away. The mevarich, first of all, there's a less of a hefsek. And as we have been learning, we don't want to be mafsik, even according to certain opinions, you break it before you make hamoitzi. But it says in Kabbalah that if the mevarich is the one that eats the food first, then beruchnius, a certain type of bracha goes into everyone's foods. And if someone else will eat from that food before the blesser eats, there's going to be a lack of bracha in their food. So it's important, aside of the halachic inyanim of hefsek, when you make a bracha on bread Friday night, you cut and eat right away. I don't care how it looks. And then you cut and you give for everyone else a piece of challah. God willing to be continued. Meir, I'm ready.
Rabbi, what was the question? How did they try the first? Didn't finish that part from the rabbi at the beginning of the page.